Yes. Hello, everybody. Hi. Good morning. I'm so pleased today to be joined by some of the folks who were just involved in a important conversation that we held this morning, a roundtable on youth jobs. And some of the folks that are here today, there were a lot of nonprofit organizations, employment service agencies who were also present. But just joining us here for now include Connor from Young Workers of the Ontario Federation of Labour. Jess is from COPE. Arpit is from the OCAD Students Union. Cyril is from Canadian Federation of Students of Ontario. Arian is from the Ontario NDP Youth. Alyssa is with the QP Education Workers. I think I got that all right. And of course, Jessica Bell and Tom Rakocevic, two of our shadow critics, MPPs who were in the conversation. So we just wrapped up this conversation where we brought together young people, like some of those who are here with us now, researchers, unions, educators, employment agencies, community leaders, because that is how we need to tackle these issues. And I want to tell you, this conversation, I think I was trying to find the right word to sum it up, and I think jarring is probably a good one. But it was difficult to hear, I would say, both from young people themselves about the obstacles that are faced right now by young people looking for jobs in Ontario, but also from the frontline service providers, the folks that are trying to actually connect young people to jobs and opportunities. Look, we know Ontario is in the middle of a jobs crisis. Over 800,000 Ontarians are unemployed right now. And youth are hit hardest. Youth unemployment sits at around 16.5%. That is nearly double the provincial average. For teenagers, it's over 22%. That's nearly 1 in 4. I will also point out this is the lowest labor participation for young people in Canada. We're seeing young Ontarians spend months, years searching for work, while costs for housing and tuition and food are skyrocketing. Sectors that used to be first stops for young people, retail, hospitality, service, are shrinking. Students with college or university credentials are struggling to get work in their field. And compared to their parents or grandparents, this generation is facing, without question, fewer opportunities, more precarity, and also, of course, higher debt. So to put it very bluntly, again, nearly 1 in every 4 teenagers in Ontario's labor force cannot find work, let alone all of those other young workers, young people who need work right now and cannot find it. This is not the future that Ontario should be offering our young people. And, I wanted to say one of the reasons that we pulled this together is because I have been talking a lot about youth unemployment as I'm traveling around the province, and I have been in about 40 or 50 ridings since the legislature adjourned for this lengthy 5-month break. In that period, I've heard from a lot of young people about what they're facing. I've also heard from lots of unemployed Ontarians and a lot of people who are worried at this moment about losing their jobs. And we haven't even really felt the full impact of the threats by Donald Trump to our economy. Premier Ford said not so long ago, that young people need to look harder for jobs. He thinks the best we can do is to point fingers. I have to say, after sitting again in this room full of people this morning who are either on the front line or young workers who are trying themselves to find jobs and represent so many young people, I don't think if Doug Ford had ever sat in a room in a conversation like this, he would be able to say that. I mean, to me, it just shows, again, how out of touch he is with where young people and where most Ontarians are at right now. And I frankly think it's an abdication of his responsibility to the next generation. So that's why we're stepping up. We are focused very firmly on developing solutions to the rapidly worsening job crisis that this government has created. And we're going to be stepping up and talking over this legislative session, about the future of our economy, about how we're going to create jobs and opportunities, because really I do believe that the future of our province is at stake. I'm happy to answer questions about it, but I will point out some of the things that we talked about today included interventions. If we had new resources to invest, where should we be making those interventions to have the biggest difference? Where are there gaps in the system? Where do we need to ensure that we're providing better education or training to help young people access good and stable jobs? What are the biggest barriers for marginalized youth, and how can we remove those? And also, really importantly, what metrics matter the most so that young people can see if we are making progress? As our province endures, again, some of the sharpest job declines in Canada under this government, the Ford government, the message from New Democrats is this: we will not let you fall through the cracks. So, young Ontarians, you deserve better than this. This jobs disaster that's unfolding in Ontario is a future that none of us can afford, and we're gonna fight really hard to make sure you get better jobs and opportunities. And with that, I'm very happy to take any questions you have.
So are there any specifics that you think the Ford government should be doing right now to help people, young people, find a job, and not one that's necessarily only in fast food?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, I think what's missing is an actual strategy. I mean, let's be honest. There is no youth employment strategy, and there's certainly no youth employment success strategy, right? This does not exist. We heard a lot from frontline employment services folks that system is not working. We know that we've seen cuts, for example, to Canada Summer Jobs at the federal level. These are jobs that, while, I mean, many of the young people that are standing with us today would point out that they're not necessarily a job that leads to a permanent job, but these are opportunities for young people to get job experience. And what we're hearing as well is that a lot of the agencies and folks who rely on those summer students, have seen a reduction in the student program, and the province has nothing similar to this. This province is not stepping up with these jobs and opportunities. And so I think we need to look very carefully at that. We heard a lot of conversation from folks who are in the post-secondary system, students, many of the ones who are here today, come out of student unions and post-secondary education. We know that, and we've all seen the reports and the stats on this, that many of our students in post-secondary institutions are struggling to feed themselves, house themselves. That it's really, really hard for graduate students right now. Graduate students are not graduating into jobs, right? They're graduating into unemployment. And so we need to take a really hard look at, how that system is working. We also heard from high school teachers and high school students and folks who from employment service agencies who were saying, we really need, despite all of the government's talk about making all these, practical improvements to our schools, we're not seeing it, right? There is no skills training. There's no real career-focused training, and no support for students. And most importantly, there's no support for young people. That you can't also talk about creating jobs and opportunities unless you're willing to support those young people with the kinds of counseling and support that they need generally, right? And that those social services are lacking as well, and that's become a problem.
Mart, speaking of job losses, 200 jobs on the line in Amherstburg, the Crown Royal Bottling Company closing. The Premier seems to be lashing out at the company and threatening now to pull off Crown Royal and Smirnoff, other brands, off LCBO shelves. So what are your thoughts on that?
I want to see, again, like we keep seeing this, the Premier come out and he's got his stunts. He's pouring out his the liquor very slowly. And but we're not seeing him actually sitting down and talking about like how he's going to keep those jobs here. We once again, we see this happening in Oshawa. We see it in Campus Casing. I heard today that there might be some resolution to the paper mill shutdown in Campus Casing. I want to see the details first. But, this Premier is always so late to the game. So I'm concerned. I think we have to also look very carefully at what that impact of that would be on jobs in other provinces, because, of course, that will be impacting jobs in some of the other provinces if you boycott it. But again, I'd like to see less of these stunts and actually more work. What has he actually done to try to address the closure of the Amherstburg plant since he started pouring out the Crown Royal?
Mara, on that,
yeah.
He was asked on stage about that with Premier Legault today at the St. Lawrence conference in Quebec City. So they're going to still bottle Crown Royal in Valleyfield, Quebec, and they're still making it in Gimli, Manitoba.
Yeah.
So is what Ford is doing, is that kind of unraveling?
Yeah.
Do you see that as a threat in terms of unraveling a united Canadian front?
Yeah. I think we have to be really, I will say, these sorts of, these steps we have to take very carefully. Because as you said, we have we're all talking about a Team Canada approach. And I don't want to see us eroding our relationship with other provinces over issues like this. Again, where is Doug Ford in actually rolling up his sleeves and talking to the company and working with the workers themselves in Amherstburg on solutions? I don't see it. I see a lot of, stunts and threats, but I don't see any actual action. And we've seen this again and again, right? He likes to, take out his ice cream and eat his ice cream and pour out his Crown Royal. But where is the actual sit down and work out solutions and fight for those jobs?
You're saying this is just what, like a tantrum or?
I would just say once again that I want to see, a real strategy from this government. I want to see the government actually rolling up their sleeves and doing something, not just, 1 minute he's pouring out Crown Royal, next minute he's talking boycott. But again, is he talking to the other provinces? Is he sitting down with the workers in Amherstburg and their union? Is he talking to the company? What are there other solutions? And we see this happening again and again. He's so willing, in the past to sort of, it's been what? How many weeks since he poured out the Crown Royal? What has he done in the interim? And that's a question I don't think he can answer.
Is there a larger danger here, do you think, in terms of, this is a large multinational company that has a $750 million trading relationship with Canada. Is there a larger danger here that the company could just pull all of its products out of the country and just say, that's it, we're done?
Yeah, again, this is why, when I'm talking to, when I'm listening to the workers in Amherstburg, I'm also listening to, UFCW talking about the jobs in Manitoba, right? This is all linked. And I don't think this government understands that. I think this is a government that, we have 800,000 people in Ontario currently already unemployed, and they don't have an actual job strategy, let alone a way to stop the loss of the jobs in Amherstburg, to really address that. It's taken them how many mills have had to close already in northern Ontario? How many paper mills have had to close? How many pulp mills have had to close before this government gets the message that this is a vertically integrated forestry sector and we need a strategy to actually save those jobs, that it's all interrelated? And I am very concerned about, this Team Canada approach falling apart. Yeah.
To Colin's point, Diageo, which is the company that's behind Smirnoff, and it has an enormous portfolio here.
Yes.
Johnny Walker and Guinness and Tanqueray and Bailey's and Smirnoff and Captain Morgan, and the list goes on and on and on. If we pull that, what does this mean for the LCBO financing? What does it mean for the customers who are looking for these brands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just say I don't see that the government has exhausted the other possibilities here. I don't see Doug Ford sitting down and trying to come up with a solution for those workers in Amherstburg right now. And I don't think that, threats are going to necessarily get us there unless we're willing to actually follow it up with some real action. And as you said, there's significant fallout from that.
On another note, we found out that roughly $3,300 in fines has been racked up by vehicles that belong to or are assigned to cabinet ministers. A lot of these were from automated speed enforcement cameras. What do you make of that? It might not be that the ministers driving it themselves at that moment. It might be, I don't know. But what do you make of cabinet vehicles being caught on an automated speed enforcement cameras, breaking the very rules that the Premier now wants to remove?
Well, Colin, this is why we have tools like that. That's why they exist. Hopefully, when whoever, a minister or a driver or one of us, happens to unfortunately speed through a zone and gets a ticket, maybe that'll be the last time we do it. And I hope it is the last time that they do it, because those zones, those cameras are there because people have been killed, because we don't want, kids to get hit, pedestrians to get hit, or to have accidents like the one we had on Parkside. Yeah.
Do you think it's fair to draw a straight line between cabinet ministers receiving these tickets or their vehicles in the Premier's quest to remove the automated speed cameras? I think there's a personal element here, and it's not all just in the best interests of municipalities and drivers.
You know, again, I think that the Premier, you know, the fact that the Premier was so quick to, you know, applaud the vandalism of public property like the speed cameras, the fact that he's being, you know, so quick to say that we don't, you know, we're going to do away with these tools. It's to me, it just has never made any sense because to me, we need all the tools we can to just make sure that people are safe and protected. And this is one of the tools that we have.
Was it surprising to you to see so many vehicles, Ontario government vehicles, being caught over the speed limit within ASC?
You know, I think, yeah, sure, it's surprising, but it's also why we have these cameras, right? It's because people sometimes they do that once, then they get a ticket, and then they don't do it again. Hopefully they learn, right?
Just on the piece of the youth jobs part of the presser today, it seemed like you're kind of suggesting that on filling the gap of the federal summer jobs program, is that something, I just want to kind of burrow in for that for a second, is that something the NDP is going to be advocating for kind of a provincial version of this plan?
Yeah, it's something we'll be looking at. I would say that, though, it's something I've heard from a lot of organizations over the summer and over the last year. There's a lot of concern about the cuts that have been made already to Canada Summer Jobs. And also, you know, likewise, you know, where is the province? So that's just one example of a program that we could be looking to expand or, you know, develop a provincial version of. But I think, you know, part of the problem we have right now is this patchwork of tools and programs. We need a, you know, youth employment success strategy. That's what we need, and that's what we're going to be working to develop. This was the beginning of some conversations that we're going to continue to have to develop some proposals. But certainly that's something that I have heard from frontline organizations. Yeah.
What would you say, just generally, what is at stake if youth unemployment kind of continues at the rate it currently is? What would you say will happen, you know, longer term to people's lives and I guess the province's fortunes as well?
Well, you know, this young people and their jobs are intrinsically linked to the success of Ontario in the future, right? I mean, obviously, I think it's also fair to say that if we with the kind of crisis we have, you know, I was in Saskatchewan on the weekend talking to lots of folks there, and when I mentioned that we had 800,000 people unemployed in Ontario, there was this collective gasp from the crowd. It's unimaginable. And I mean, that's, you know, not so far off from the population of Saskatchewan, right? I mean, you know, the scope of it is massive, right? And I think that people, and I think that the government is not taking that seriously. I think that at the end of the day, if we don't address this, then the social consequences of that are something we will pay for down the road. If we can't find, you know, good jobs and good opportunities and connect young people to those jobs and opportunities and prepare them for that future, then we're all going to pay for that. And I know as a parent, you know, I'm of the generation, I've got 2 young adult children, daughters, and we are the first generation that's going to, that, you know, it looks like our children will not have the same opportunities we did. This is quite, this is disturbing to say the least, and I'm very concerned about it because if we don't address it, we are going to be definitely paying the consequences of that. Yeah.
Oh, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say one of the unusual, or a couple of the unusual, maybe now sources for entry-level jobs being disappeared is AI, and also parts of the temporary foreign worker program. And I just wondered if you thought about addressing both of those threats to young people's employment.
Yes, both of those issues came up in our roundtable conversations today, and certainly that, also the gig economy, gig work, the precarity of jobs right now, the lack of you know, full-time, you know, unionized jobs and those opportunities. And, you know, I think, you know, and I've said this before, you know, in a moment like this, when we're facing, you know, an existential threat to our economy, to our future, to our sovereignty, this would be the moment for governments to step up and actually do something big and bold. And I think, addressing an unemployment crisis like we have right now, we have Mark Carney talking about nation-building projects. I think that's fantastic. I want to see homes being built, right? I want to see. I don't think we should be focusing on the premier's vanity projects. I think we should be focused on things that are going to deliver services and opportunities for Ontarians for generations. So I look to things like building homes and hospitals and schools, and investing in programs and opportunities now. Taking our post-secondary education system seriously. And how about this? Let's start with not cutting $2 billion from our colleges and universities. Of all the times to be cutting, this is not the moment. And so I think, in fact, not only is the government not going in the right direction, but they're going in the absolutely opposite direction that they should be headed in.
On Marine Land is giving both levels of government a deadline tomorrow. If they don't get some kind of emergency stabilization funding, their options are either bankruptcy or euthanizing the whales. What do you think should happen here? Should the government step in and try to take over Marine Land and find some way to save the whales?
I think that I like to be honest. I think what really needs to happen is we need independent, an independent assessment of the health of the animals and what it's going to take to make sure they have a healthy future and a good life. And at this point, this has been going on for so many years. It's appalling that we're only now, we're now being kind of strong-armed into coming up with a solution. Marine Land should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm glad to see the government paying some attention to this. But I think we need somebody to come in independently and assess the health of those animals.
Do you think the government should use its powers of expropriation here with the Marine Land? Because there's a lot of feelings that Marine Land is trying to offload the whales in order to do something with the property. Should the government step in and say, if you're not going to care for the whales, you're not going to care for the property?
Well, I think everything should be on the table.
Including expropriation.
I haven't thought that one through, to be honest, Colin. But I think we should be looking at all the tools we have available. But, it's just, to me, it's just a shame that it's gotten to this point. We've known for years what was happening there, and the government was unwilling to do anything.
Okay,
thank you. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your comments today, too. Thanks, Jess. Really nice.